Let me tell y'all something real quick. Stop tellin' everybody your problems. Now, I ain't say, and you got a suffer in silence, but there's a difference between seeking help and complain into folks who can't, won't, or don't care to fix it. Everybody ain't your therapist. Everybody ain't your pastor. And everybody surely ain't qualified to carry your pain. Matter fact, most of the people you tell your problems to, they either glad you got 'em, gone gossip about 'em, or gone use 'em against you. Let me drop a little truth in your spirit. God didn't bring you through what he brought you through just for you to rehearse your pain to an audience that can't help you grow. You survived that thing for a reason. But see, the enemy wants you stuck. He wants you stuck talking about it instead of walking out of it. I used to tell everybody everything thinking that made me open, thinking that made me real. Nah. That made me vulnerable in rooms full of people who were never praying for me, only preying on me. You gotta learn to take your problems to the right places. Take it to God. Take it to your grind. Take it to your journal. Take it to your purpose. Let your pain push you to progress, not pity. Stop expecting folks to fix what they didn't break. Half of them can't fix their own life. Now, I ain't saying you gotta be cold, but you gotta be careful. Protect your peace like your life depends on it, 'cause guess what? It does. Everybody ain't equipped to handle your story. Share wisely. You ever been in a room full of people and felt more alone than you did in your own house? That's what happens when you open your mouth to the wrong crowd. See, you think you're sharing from the heart, but what they hearing is a weakness they can take advantage of. Everybody got ears, but not everybody got heart. Just because they listening don't mean they care. Some people are just collecting data, waiting for the perfect moment to use it against you. You got to learn the difference between a safe space and a setup. There's a whole lot of folks that look like friends until the storm comes. That's when you find out they were only around when the sun was shining. The moment you get vulnerable, they start making calls not to check on you, but to spread your business like wildfire. Be careful who you bleed around. Some people ain't trying to heal you, they trying to feed off your wounds. People love hearing your problems because it makes them feel better about their own life. Ain't that sad? Misery loves company, and if you keep speaking your story in the wrong circles, you're gonna end up with a crowd that claps for your pain instead of praying for your peace. You think they care 'cause they nodding their head, but behind closed doors, your story is entertainment. There's a reason you feel drained after telling certain people your truth. Your spirit know when it's being mishandled. You ever get off the phone with somebody and feel worse than you did before you called? That's a red flag, not a coincidence. Your peace is a sign of alignment. When it's disturbed, you ain't in the right place. Stop trying to force healing in places that keep you hurt. You got to treat your life like a sacred thing. Don't just open the door to anybody who knock. You ain't desperate for attention, you're in need of protection. Every time you share your pain, you expose your heart. And when you expose your heart to people who lack compassion, you're giving them a weapon. And trust me, they'll use it when it benefits them. It's not about being secretive. It's about being selective. Everybody don't get access to the inner you. You can smile with folks, laugh with them, even do business with them. That don't mean you trust them with your soul. That's reserved for the few, not the many. That's reserved for the ones who show up when it ain't convenient, when it ain't profitable, when it's just about love. Stop looking for healing in people who ain't healed. Broken people don't know how to carry wholeness. You give them your story, and they fumble it 'cause they ain't even cleaned up their own mess. Just because they look put together don't mean they got the tools to help you. You end up trying to heal together, and now both of y'all bleeding and blind. Sometimes the best thing you can do is sit still. Be quiet. Let God work on you without explaining every detail to people who ain't earned that trust. Silence can be sacred. Silence can be strategy. Some battles are won when you stop announcing the war. Some blessings come when you stop sharing your plans. Everybody don't need to know what you're walking through. You got people in your life who smile in your face but pray for your downfall in silence. You think they're happy for you, but they're really just waiting for your next breakdown. You think you're safe, but what you're doing is giving ammunition to people who don't know how to love you in your low moments. Stop mistaking availability for loyalty. It's real easy to find people to talk to. It's rare to find someone who will sit with you in silence and still care. You don't need a crowd. You need clarity. The more people you involve, the more confusion shows up. Keep your circle tight and your story tighter. You're not for everybody. Your truth ain't public property. Life will teach you quick the same people who said, "I got your back." Be the first to disappear when life hit you in the mouth. You end up looking around, wondering where everybody went. That's why you gotta learn to stand on your own 2 feet. Not 'cause you don't need people, but because you need the right people. Big difference. Even Jesus had to leave the crowd to pray. There's power in privacy. Sometimes your breakthrough is tied to your ability to be quiet, work in the dark, and let your results do the talking. Don't go looking for applause during your process. Let the outcome speak for you. Let your healing be the headline, not your pain. You ain't weak for wanting someone to talk to. That's human, but be wise about where you put your heart. That heart been through a lot. That mind been fighting battles nobody even knows about. You deserve someone who listens to understand, not just respond. Someone who guards your story like it's sacred. Cause it is you can't expect loyalty from people who ain't loyal to themselves. You sharing your battles with folks who haven't even faced their own demons. That's like asking a blind man for directions. You got to take that pain to someone who's been there, who made it through, who got the scars to prove it, not just a smile on Instagram. And sometimes the best place to take it is to God. Ain't no judgment, ain't no gossip, just grace. You can cry there, shout there, break down there, and still be held together. When the world don't understand you, when people mishandle you, that's the place you find peace that don't make sense and strength you didn't know you had. Your pain is a platform. Not a prison. Pain got a way of making you feel like time froze. Like the world moved on, but you still stuck in that moment, the heartbreak, the betrayal, the letdown. But let me tell you something, pain wasn't made to paralyze you. It was made to prepare you. What you survived wasn't the end of your story. It was the beginning of your calling. You didn't go through all that just to sit in sorrow. You went through it to rise with purpose. Some folks spend years treating pain like a life sentence, when really, it was just a lesson. You ain't supposed to pitch a tent there. You were supposed to walk through it, pick up what you needed, and keep it moving. But the enemy wants you stuck, wants you living in the rerun of that hurt, playing the same scene over and over like it's still real time. You gotta hit stop and change the channel. There's power in what broke you, but you gotta see it right. You can't walk in victory when you see yourself as a victim every day. You may have been hurt, but you're not hopeless. You may have been abandoned, but you're not alone. You may have been overlooked, but you are not invisible. Don't let a painful chapter convince you that the whole book is tragic. That ain't your truth. Pain exposes potential. See, when you're comfortable, you don't grow. When everything's easy, you don't stretch. But when pain hits, that's when your strength wakes up. That's when your creativity shows up. That's when your grind finds new gears. Most people don't find out what they're made of until they've been crushed. But pressure reveals diamonds, not dust. You think what happened to you was punishment, but maybe it was preparation. You think that loss was the end, but maybe it was the setup. You gotta flip the script. That pain you feel, it can be turned into fuel, into a story, into a testimony that shakes the room, not just for you, But for somebody else who ain't strong enough to say it out loud yet, when you've walked through fire and still showed up with a smile, people notice. That ain't weakness, that's resilience. That ain't fake, that's faith. And it don't mean you didn't cry, it means you cried and kept going. It means you bled and didn't quit. It means you were scared and still stood tall. That kind of pain turns you into a lighthouse for others who feel like they're drowning. There's someone out there waiting on you to tell your story. But you can't do that if you're still treating your scars like shame. Your scars are not a curse, they are credentials. Proof that you've been through something and survived. That you came out the other side not bitter, but better. That you didn't let the fire burn you down, you let it refine you. Too many people walk around treating pain like it's their identity. I was cheated on. I was fired. I was abused. And while all of that is real, it ain't who you are. That's what you experienced, not who you became. You got to separate your pain from your personality. Because if not, you'll end up building your whole life around what broke you. Pain is a passage. It's not a place to stay. It's the bridge you cross to become the next version of yourself. And yeah, it hurts. Growth always does, but if you stay stuck in the feeling, you'll never receive the revelation. What is it trying to teach you? What strength is it calling out of you? What are you learning that comfort could have never shown you? Let your pain do its job, not just to break you down, but to build you up. Some of the greatest movements in the world were born out of heartbreak. Some of the most powerful leaders only rose because something shattered them first. When the bottom fell out, their calling rose up. And the same thing can happen for you if you stop hiding behind your pain and start standing on it when life knocks you down. You got two choices: stay there or use it to bounce back. It's hard, no lie, but every time you rise, you break the lie that you're defeated. Every time you show up, you kill the illusion that you're weak. And every time you tell your story, you hand someone else the key to unlock their own cage. That's what pain can do if you let it. Don't bury what you've been through, build on it. Don't despise the season you hated, draw strength from it. If you're still here, that means you still got a reason. And part of that reason might just be using that pain to shift rooms, to break chains, to remind people what survival looks like in real time. You ain't done, you just getting started. See, platforms don't always look like microphones. Sometimes they look like one conversations, blog posts, artwork, business ideas, books, podcasts, whatever God put in your hand. Your pain qualified you in ways a degree never could. It gave you insight, grit, and depth that you can't buy. And now it's time to use it. Pain taught you what peace really is. Pain showed you who was really in your corner. Pain made you grow up faster than you wanted to. But now you got wisdom that can't be stolen. You got a story that's real, raw, and ready to help somebody. Don't waste it. Don't bury it under bitterness. Pull it out, clean it off, and turn it into something powerful. You are not what hurt you. You are what came from that hurt. You are the strength that rose up. You are the healing that happened. You are the clarity that came from chaos. And you are the voice someone else needs to hear, so they know their story ain't over. Either God is the best counselor, take it to him first sometimes, before you run to your friends, before you send that long text, before you break down in front of people who can't handle your soul. You gotta pause and go somewhere sacred. I mean really sacred. Somewhere you don't have to explain yourself. Somewhere you don't have to perform strength when your heart is in pieces. That place is with God. And until you understand that, you're going to keep getting advice from confused people trying to lead you through a storm they've never survived. People mean well, sure, but they're limited. They see through their own lens, speak from their own experience, and project their own fears onto your life. That's why the same issue told to 5 people gets you 5 different responses, none of which feel quite right. Because the only voice that fully understands you, that knew you before the pain, before the failure, before the tears, is the one who created you. That's where you go first. Some of y'all are exhausted, not because life is too hard, but because you keep carrying it to the wrong place. You keep venting to people instead of praying. You keep analyzing instead of trusting. You keep trying to understand the why instead of surrendering to the what now. God don't need a full explanation. He don't need the facts. He knows already. He just wants the relationship you ever just sat in silence and let the tears fall. That moment where you don't have words, just wait, that's where healing begins. That's where God meets you, not in the polished, well-spoken prayers, not in the churchy phrases. He meets you in your mess. He shows up in the breakdown. He's not offended by your pain, he's drawn to it. A broken heart is a magnet for God's mercy sea. People need explanations. People ask questions, but God gives peace. Not always answers, but peace. Not always reasons, but reassurance. And that's worth more than 100 opinions. When you get quiet enough to hear him speak to your spirit, everything shifts. That's when the storm can still be raging, but your soul is calm. That's when you stop depending on the external and start pulling strength from the eternal. Some of y'all been asking everybody, except the one who already mapped out the solution. You worried about who left, who stayed, who said what, but have you asked God what he's trying to develop in you through this season? Have you asked him what he's trying to protect you from? You thought it was a loss, but it might have been a rescue. You thought it was rejection, but it might have been redirection. God ain't like people. He won't twist your words. He won't screenshot your struggle and share it with the world. He won't nod and then disappear when it gets inconvenient. He's there 24/7. No appointment needed. No insurance required, and best of all, he don't just listen, he restores. He doesn't just hear you, he heals you. But you gotta come to him first. Not last. You ever notice how the weight lifts when you pray real? I ain't talking about polished prayer. I'm talking about raw, ugly, straight. From the gut kind of prayer, where you mad, where you confused, where you don't even know if he's listening, but you let it out anyway. That's the real stuff. That's the stuff that breaks chains. That's the stuff that moves heaven. God is not distant. He's not waiting on you to be perfect. He's waiting on you to be honest. Some of y'all keep trying to impress him with performance when all he wants is your heart. Broken, bring it. Angry, bring it. Tired, bring it. You don't fix it first, you give it to him messy. He specializes in restoration, not presentation. Stop putting God last on the list. You've been trying therapy, books, blogs, friends, even strangers online, and all of that's fine, but none of it works like his presence does. There are some wounds no human can touch. There are some fears no quote can ease. There are some storms only the presence of God can calm. You don't need a new method, you need to go back to your source. Don't wait until you're drowning to call out. Go to him daily when things are good. When things are quiet, build that relationship in the calm so you'll know where to run in the chaos. See, when you've built a habit of talking to God, you don't panic, you pray. You don't crumble, you consult. That's how you stay grounded when everything else is shaky, and don't get discouraged if you don't feel something right away. This ain't fast food. This is faith. Sometimes the peace comes slowly. Sometimes it don't hit until after the tears. But it always shows up. God don't ghost people. You stay with him long enough, you'll realize he was there the whole time, just waiting on you to notice you've been through too much to keep carrying life on your own shoulders. You were never meant to bear all this by yourself. That's why you feel crushed. You trying to be strong, but strength ain't in silence, it's in surrender. Lay it down, lay it all down. And when you do, you'll feel that supernatural exchange, your worry for his wisdom, your stress for his stability, your weakness for his strength. There's a reason you ain't lost your mind yet, a reason you still here, a reason you didn't quit, even when everything in you wanted to. That reason is grace. That reason is divine. And it's not because of you, it's because of him. So why not go to him first? Why not trust the one who's never failed you, never abandoned you, never been surprised by anything you faced? He's the best counselor you'll ever meet. And unlike the world, he's not tired of hearing from you. So talk to him, not just when it hurts. Talk to him because he listens like no one else does. And when you do that, when you make him your first option instead of your last resort, everything else in your life starts to fall into divine order. Silence is strength. When your spirit is healing, there comes a time in your journey where the loudest thing you can say is nothing at all. Silence is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's strength dressed in calm. And when your spirit is in recovery, when your soul is piecing itself back together, silence is the medicine. See, the world teaches you to stay busy, stay loud, post everything, explain everything. But when God is working on you, he'll often pull you into a season where he turns the volume down so he can turn your vision up. Healing isn't loud. It doesn't always come with announcements or Instagram captions. Sometimes it looks like walking away from arguments you used to jump into. Sometimes it's cutting off conversations that drain you, ignoring comments that trigger you, and choosing peace over proving a point. That's growth, that's strength, that's knowing your worth without having to perform it. The reason some people stay broken is because they keep talking while they should be listening. Listening to their body, listening to their spirit, listening to God. See, you can't hear the whispers of wisdom when you're surrounded by noise, and healing speaks softly. It shows up in stillness, but you'll miss it if you're too busy explaining your pain instead of processing it. You don't owe everyone an explanation. You don't owe them access to your process. Sometimes the best way to heal is to pull back from the crowd and get quiet enough to remember who you are. Because when life hits hard, it's easy to forget. It's easy to get lost in the roles, the labels, the responsibilities. But silence brings you back to center. People think strength is clapping back, responding, posting, defending, but real strength is restraint. It's letting your spirit rest instead of constantly reacting. It's letting the truth speak over time instead of shouting it in the moment. You gotta trust that what's real will last, and what's fake will fade with or without your input. There's something powerful about keeping your mouth shut while your mind and heart are under construction. You don't need to defend your evolution. You don't need to prove your healing. You don't need to convince people you're doing better. That's not their business anyway. That's between you and God. And sometimes even your own mind needs silence so it can unlearn the lies and relearn the truth. Healing is holy ground. Not everybody can walk there with you. So God will isolate you, not to punish you, but to protect the process. He'll remove distractions, shut doors, end conversations, because the healing you need requires a focused space. And silence is the boundary that keeps your heart safe while he works on it. Sometimes the only way to hear your spirit speak again is to stop speaking, to unplug from everybody else's voice and finally tune in to your own. That voice that got buried under opinions, that dream that got drowned out by noise, that vision you were scared to say out loud. Silence brings it all back, but you gotta get still enough to hear it. You don't need to tell the world what you're doing. You don't need to post your progress. You just need to be in it, fully, privately. Let the silence wrap around you like armor while your wounds knit themselves shut. Let the quiet moments be your sanctuary. Let them refill you. Real strength isn't just about surviving the battle, it's about knowing when to retreat and recover. You will surprise yourself when you learn how much healing happens in the absence of noise. No debates, no proving, no justifying, just being, just breathing, just trusting that your silence is not emptiness, it's intentional, it's powerful, it's sacred, and it's necessary. You've tried talking your way out of pain. You've tried fighting through it with your fists up. Now try silence. Try stillness. Let your actions do the talking. Let your peace confuse people who expected chaos. Let your absence speak louder than your arguments ever did. That's a different level of healing, and a different level of disciplined healing can't happen in a room full of echoes. You need fresh air. You need sacred space. You need time where your thoughts aren't battling to be heard over everybody else's opinions. That's what silence gives you. It gives you the room to breathe again, to remember again, to build again without the pressure of being seen or understood. Don't fear silence. Embrace it. It's where your real self reintroduces itself to your weary self. It's where you learn how to walk in grace instead of guilt. It's where you stop pretending to be okay and actually start becoming okay. Because silence gives your truth room to rise. And when it does, you'll realize that all the noise was just a distraction. So when the world says, "Why aren't you speaking up? Why are you so quiet? Why did you disappear?" Smile and keep walking. You don't owe them your voice while you're healing your soul. You owe yourself the gift of sacred silence. Because when your spirit is healing, your silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom in motion, and in that silence, you'll find something no crowd can give you: clarity, peace, and the voice of God whispering, "I'm not finished with you yet. Stay still. I'm rebuilding you from the inside out." When you get quiet, you get clarity. The reason most people can't hear direction for their life is because they're too busy talking. Too busy asking everybody else what they should do, chasing opinions, posting polls, reading 1,000 different self-help posts. But clarity doesn't come through noise. Clarity shows up in the quiet. That's where vision sharpens. That's where confusion lifts. That's where your next move starts to make sense, not out there in the crowd, but in the silence of your own soul. You ever noticed how when life gets loud, your spirit gets foggy? You can't tell if the thing you're chasing is really your dream or somebody else's expectation. You lose track of what you wanted, what you need, and who you really are. That's what happens when you don't unplug. The noise drowns out your instincts, but when you slow down, when you step back, when you shut the world out for a second, your spirit can breathe again. And when your spirit breathes, your mind sees clearly. Getting quiet doesn't mean you're doing nothing. It means you're doing the most important thing: listening. Listening to what your soul is really saying. Listening to what life is trying to teach you. Listening to God. See, in silence, things rise to the surface that busyness kept buried. Pain you didn't know you still carried. Desires you forgot you had. Goals you were too scared to admit. But the quiet, it pulls it all up. And you can't fix what you haven't faced. Too many people out here moving fast but going nowhere. Busy but not productive. Loud but not wise. Because they never stop long enough to ask, is this even the path I'm supposed to be on? That's why getting quiet is not just healthy, it's necessary. It's the reset button your soul needs. The mental detox your spirit is crying for. You don't get that in the noise, you get it in the stillness. You ain't supposed to live your life reacting. You're supposed to live your life responding from a place of peace, not pressure. But if you never get still, you'll always be reactive. Always chasing something, fixing something, explaining something. And that constant motion keeps you from hearing what really matters. The truth. Some of the clearest moments you'll ever have won't come in a crowd. They'll come in a quiet room, just you, your thoughts, and God. That's where your why gets real. That's where your what's next starts taking shape. You don't need a whole committee to figure it out. You need stillness. You need solitude. You need silence to slice through the static of everybody else's noise. There's something powerful about quiet time. Not scrolling, not multitasking, not distracting yourself. Just sitting with the truth. That's when you see things clearly. The relationship you need to let go of. The dream you need to reignite. The fear that's been running your decisions. You see it all in the stillness. It's been there, you just needed space to see it. Getting quiet will show you who really belongs in your life, too. When the noise dies down, so do the fake connections. You find out who adds value and who adds drama. You find out who's around for you and who's around for what they can get from you. That clarity hurts sometimes, but it's necessary, because you can't build a healed life on toxic foundations. Clarity is not just about what you see, it's about what you stop ignoring. The patterns, the habits, the coping mechanisms you've normalized. In silence, you start to confront what you've been escaping. But that's how healing begins. That's how transformation starts. You can't shift what you're afraid to look at. Silence forces you to look, and don't be scared if it feels uncomfortable at first. Most people run from silence because they're scared of what they'll find, but discomfort is part of the process. It means something is being uprooted. It means growth is happening. Don't quit just because the silence gets loud. Stay there. Push through. Because on the other side of that discomfort is clarity. Your next level depends on what you see when things get quiet. Not what you hear from others, what you hear in your spirit. And if your spirit is constantly drowned out by noise, you'll miss the call. You'll miss the cue. You'll miss the answer that was always there, just waiting for you to turn down the volume on everybody else. Sometimes the greatest revelations won't come from a sermon or a quote. They'll come when you're sitting alone, asking, what do I really want? What's draining me? What would I do if I wasn't scared? That's real self-work. That's the deep stuff, and you only tap into that when you get quiet long enough to tell the truth to yourself. Clarity isn't always glamorous. Sometimes it shows up with tears. Sometimes it comes with goodbyes, but it always brings peace. It always brings power, and it always sets you up for your purpose. Don't run from it. Make space for it. Prioritize it. You owe that to yourself. You can't walk boldly into your future if you're confused in your present. The world will try to convince you that quiet is boring, that silence is weakness, that being alone means being lost. But that's a lie. Quiet is where you get direction. Silence is where you hear your soul speak. Being alone is where you reconnect with your source. And from that place, you can make moves that aren't reactive, but right. So get quiet. Not just once. Make it a rhythm. Make it a ritual, because every time you do, the fog lifts, the chaos calms, and the clarity comes. And when clarity comes, confidence follows. Stop interrupting your growth with unnecessary conversations. One of the most dangerous things you can do when you're trying to grow is entertain conversations that don't align with where you're going. Every time you let the wrong voice speak into your life, you stall your progress. Every time you explain yourself to people who don't even understand themselves, you delay your breakthrough. Growth is not just about what you start doing, it's about what you stop entertaining. And unnecessary conversations will keep you circling the same mountain when you're supposed to be headed into new territory. There's a cost to every conversation: energy, focus, emotion. And if you're constantly spending those resources on arguments, debates, gossip, explanations, or trying to change people who don't want to grow, you're bankrupting your purpose. You gotta ask yourself, is this conversation helping me or holding me? Because some dialogues are distractions in disguise. They make you feel heard, but they leave you stuck. Growth requires silence. It requires separation. It requires sacred boundaries. And some of the people you love to talk to the most might be the very people God is trying to quiet in your life. Not because they're evil, but because they're not equipped to walk where you're going. And every time you invite them into your process, you confuse your spirit. You doubt your progress. You second guess your own decisions. Not everybody deserves a seat at the table of your transformation. And just because someone was there in your past doesn't mean they get to speak into your future. Growth is personal, and when you let unnecessary voices into that process, you pollute the soil. You plant doubt where confidence should be. You plant confusion where clarity was growing. And that's how dreams die, not from failure, but from too many people speaking into something that was only meant for you and God, you ever left a conversation feeling drained, confused, or off? That's not random. That's a spiritual check engine light. That's your soul saying, this ain't feeding me. This ain't helping me. But you override it because you're trying to be nice. You don't want to offend. You're trying to keep the peace. But real peace isn't the absence of conflict, it's the presence of alignment. And if it ain't aligned, it ain't worth your energy. Some of y'all would be so much further if you weren't explaining your boundaries to people who benefit from you not having any. You don't have to justify your healing. You don't need permission to grow. You don't need approval to go quiet and focus on yourself. This is your life. This is your journey. And the sooner you stop giving people access to places they don't respect, the quicker your growth will multiply. There's a difference between connection and distraction. Some folks are only in your life because you won't tell them it's time to go. And their presence keeps you engaged in conversations that serve no purpose, rehashing old drama, arguing about what they never changed, seeking closure they ain't willing to give. That's not growth. That's emotional recycling. And you were made for more than that. You don't need to respond to everything. You don't need to explain your every move. You don't need to defend your peace. You don't need to revisit what you've already outgrown. Some things you outgrow silently. Some goodbyes happen without a speech. Some doors you close without slamming them. You just lock them and never return. Growth loves quiet. Growth loves focus. Growth loves intentionality. But you can't have that if you're constantly distracted by who said what, who misunderstood you, or who feels some type of way about your healing. Let them feel, let them talk, while you keep walking. You're not responsible for how people respond to your elevation. There's a version of you that's clear, confident, bold, and rooted. But you can't meet that version if you keep lowering yourself to meet people in conversations you've already outgrown. That's not arrogance, that's alignment. That's recognizing that not every question deserves an answer, not every insult deserves a reaction, and not every voice deserves your attention. Your energy is currency. Stop spending it on emotional overdrafts. Invest it in becoming. Invest it in building. Invest it in quiet rooms where ideas grow, where prayers rise, and where peace is the loudest thing in the room. Because that's where the real transformation happens, not in the comments section, not in group chats, not in defending your decisions. The next level of your life requires discipline in your dialogue. It requires you to be unavailable for nonsense. It requires you to be unreachable to drama. It requires you to be committed to growth more than you're committed to being understood, and that's hard at first. But once you taste the clarity and peace that comes from intentional silence, you'll never go back to chaos. Stop interrupting your process to entertain people who aren't even growing themselves. Let them sit with their confusion while you rise in your calling. Let them whisper while you win. Let them speculate while you elevate. You don't have to announce your healing. Let your results speak, and when you realize that your growth isn't for everybody, you'll stop begging them to see it. You'll stop sharing it in places that can't hold it. You'll stop seeking validation from voices that never valued you in the first place. And that's when the shift happens, not just around you, but inside you. You're not cold, you're just focused. They'll call you distant. They'll say you've changed. They'll tell you you're acting different. But what they don't understand is you're not cold, you're just focused. You're not being rude, you're being intentional. You've spent too much of your life distracted by everything and everyone. And now you're choosing yourself, you're choosing your peace, you're choosing your vision. That's not selfish. That sacred focus changes everything. It changes how you respond, how you spend your time, and who gets access to you. When your mind is clear on where it's going, your circle gets smaller, Your schedule tightens, your conversations shift. And people who are comfortable with the distracted version of you start to get uncomfortable with the disciplined version of you see. When you're focused, you no longer have time for what doesn't feed your purpose. You don't explain your boundaries. You don't chase validation. You don't water dead plants. You get real quiet, real selective, real intentional, because focus forces you to eliminate the unnecessary. And some folks were only surviving in your life because you weren't focused enough to notice how much they were costing you. Focus ain't about being mean, it's about being aligned. It's about knowing where you're headed and protecting your energy to get there. When you've cried enough, lost enough, healed enough, you start to realize you can't afford to live distracted anymore. You got dreams to build. You got peace to protect. You got a legacy to leave. That requires focus, not feelings. People will test your growth. They'll try to pull you back into emotional places you've left behind. Old arguments, old habits, old reactions. But when you're focused, you learn how to disengage without being defensive. You walk away without needing closure. You stay silent without needing to prove a point. That's not being cold, that's cold maturity. Focus creates space. And in that space, you start to hear yourself again. You remember what matters. You realign with your values. And once you get that clarity, you can't go back to chaos. You can't go back to pleasing everybody. You can't go back to overextending, over-explaining, over-giving. You've outgrown that version of you, the one who is always available to be drained. There's nothing wrong with having a season where you go ghost, where you're unavailable, where you're hard to reach. That's not arrogance, that's self-respect. That's building season. That's when you block out the noise and pour into your purpose. Some folks will call you selfish for it, but that's because they were comfortable with you being distracted. Now that you're dialed in, they don't know how to handle you, and that's okay. You're not responsible for their comfort. You're responsible for your calling. You're not here to be liked, you're here to grow. And growth requires focus. It requires silence. It requires sacred solitude. You won't always be understood in that space, but you will be aligned. And alignment will give you a peace that attention never could. You ever notice how focused people don't explain much? They don't announce every move. They don't share every update. They just move different. Because when you're really locked in, your actions speak loud enough. You don't need applause, you need results. You don't need a crowd, you need consistency. That's how elevation works. Quiet grind. Loud results. Let them misunderstand you. Let them talk. Let them assume. You don't owe them an explanation for prioritizing your goals. You don't need to defend your boundaries to people who benefited from you not having any. This season is about protecting your focus at all costs. If it doesn't bring you peace or push you forward, it's a distraction, and you don't have time for distractions anymore. You've got something to build, something to birth, something to break through, and that kind of elevation doesn't happen in chaos. It happens in clarity. It happens in discipline. It happens when you cut off the noise and say, I love y'all, but I'm unavailable right now. I'm working on me. That's not being distant. That's being dedicated. Focus is the bridge between where you are and where you're destined to be. And every time you sacrifice your focus to please people, you delay your progress. You weren't created to stay stuck in survival mode. You were created to build something meaningful, and that requires tunnel vision, not distraction, not drama, not doubt. You don't have to explain why you're unavailable, why you didn't answer that call, why you didn't show up to that event, why you're not talking like you used to. The version of you they had access to was a distracted version. This version is on assignment. This version is building. This version is aligned with purpose. So no, you're not cold, you're clear, you're not distant, you're driven, you're not rude, you're refined, and the people who really love you will understand or adjust. But either way, you don't shrink your focus for anyone. You protect it, you honor it, You guard it like the treasure it is, because once you learn the power of focus, you'll never settle for distraction again. You'll start choosing your purpose over popularity, your peace over performance, your growth over gossip. And that's the version of you the world's been waiting to see, the one who's no longer cold, just completely committed to the calling. So let the world talk. Let them call you cold, distant, selfish, different. Let them say whatever they need to say to make sense of the version of you they no longer recognize. You don't owe them an explanation. You owe yourself progress. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself purpose. You spent enough years bleeding for people who wouldn't even hand you a bandage. You spent enough energy explaining your value to people who were never ready to honor it. You've cried enough, settled enough, compromised enough. This new season, it's not about pleasing people. It's about becoming who you were born to be. And that journey doesn't require applause, it requires discipline. It requires silence. It requires hard decisions and uncomfortable separations. But let me tell you something. The cost of focus is always cheaper than the cost of regret. And when you finally choose to stop telling everybody your problems, stop watering dead conversations, and stop inviting confusion into your sacred space, you'll feel your power rise. You don't need the world to understand. You need to understand yourself. You need to walk like your future depends on it, because it does. You need to wake up every day like your legacy is on the line, because it is. And the moment you get serious about that, everything starts to shift. So walk bold, walk focused, walk quiet. You're not cold, you're chosen. You're not distant, you're developing. You're not ignoring anyone, you're building something they were never meant to see until it was finished. This is your time, your chapter, your transformation. Let them misunderstand you while you master yourself. Because when it's all said and done, your results will speak louder than any rumor ever could. Now, go be everything they said you couldn't be. The world ain't ready, but you are.